right, welcome back to the Range Minded Podcast. I gotta move my mic here. I don't know how well you can hear me. You know, you start fiddling the thing. I've done this podcast since 2018, right? Um, but I always, feel like you have to tweak something or mess with something. So I don't know. I probably screwed something up. I don't know. I don't think I did. Obviously, it's recording. You are here with me tonight, so this is awesome. By the way, this is being recorded on the 14th of April. What a crazy week it's been. We've had a lot of fun things that have happened over this past week in the firearms community, and one of them that we're going to be talking about solely in this show. And maybe there'll be enough time for me to monologue, which I know is your favorite part. Probably not, but it may happen. It may not happen. Anyway, again, welcome back. My name is Steve, the Range Minded Podcast, and it's always good to hang out with you guys. I really do appreciate your time. And it's just fun to hang out. Speaking of hanging out, before we get to the meat and potatoes of the show, to my children's dismay, I've been hanging out a lot on Twitter. I mean, probably an unhealthy amount. And Spaces is like a huge thing. And I can't remember if I talked about this last show or not because my head's mush right now. But I found some awesome Pro 2A groups on Spaces. I've been hanging out there a lot. If you want to come hang out in those spaces as well. If you're familiar with Spaces and Twitter in general, I guess if you pull up your Twitter feed and you see my logo, the Range Minded logo, and it's got a blue ring and a little mic on it, that means I am on a space. You can just click on that icon; it takes you to the space. Normally, we have some pretty good conversations. In fact, Friday night we had some anti-gun conversations, and the nice thing is Joe Lanu is the guy I've been kind of following in this, and he's been taking his spaces to good constructive places. But that almost rhymes, doesn't it? And this conversation that was had on gun control or new firearm bills, whatever you want to call it, was actually, in my mind, somewhat constructive. Obviously, you get a lot of pro 2A people and some negative 2A people in the same community or in the same spot. There's going to be some tension and some frustration. We went into this conversation knowing that we're not going to change anybody's minds, but it's good to have a conversation, and maybe somebody that's listening and paying attention to it can have their eye opened one way or the other. And it was really awesome. Like I said, it went on for a little while, about 3 hours. A long time, right? And it was interesting to see some perspective. Whether these folks were genuine or not, I don't know. Obviously, there was one gentleman saying that very loosely. Of course, you if you go listen to the space, you'll know why I say that loosely. I think he was very disingenuous and just wanted to stir the pot. I don't think he had any intentions of having a conversation. I think he was all about having an argument, which in my mind, arguments are not going to solve any problems. We need to have conversations. And honestly, maybe us 2A people need to have some pretty hard conversations when it comes to figuring out how to keep guns out of crazy people's hands. And who defines crazy? That's the real issue. Obviously, if you go shoot up a place, you're mentally ill. But can that be abused? This comes down to the red flag law thing. Can that be abused? And what do you do to the abuser of that law? Like if somebody throws out a false accusation, what is the consequence? These are things that we need to figure out. These are conversations I think we need to have. Now, I know that might surprise some of you guys. You might be thinking, oh, Steve is turning soft and anti-gun. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's a solution to this very difficult problem, and we're not going to find that solution if we don't communicate about it. That's what I'm getting at. I am a 2A absolutist. I do not support any more gun control laws. I don't think that's the way it goes. We're going to be talking about something tonight that is going to, bring that up again. But I look back when I was a kid, dudes my age, especially in rural areas, like I grew up here in Southeast Idaho. High school age, when I was high school age, there was dudes rolling around in their pickup trucks with gun racks, a couple of rifles in the rear window. Never was there a problem, ever. Those guns didn't jump out of the pickup and start, shooting randomly. It just didn't happen. And we didn't have a lot of the laws that are in place now. So why are these things happening? Like, what is causing it? And obviously, there's a deeper issue that's been rooted, maybe programmed. Maybe some of you guys that go down this conspiracy theory loopholes. See what I just did there? Conspiracy theory holes. Maybe it's by design. Maybe there's something that's changed in society that causes people to do bad things to bad people. In my opinion, it started with taking God out of the equation. Something's got to fill that void. And as a Christian, I believe that if you take the light, darkness fills its space, right? But once that light comes back on, there's no place for darkness. So there's my theology second for you guys in the podcast. Well, maybe we should jump. We could, remember I said that we're not going to monologue? I decided to throw out in the very beginning. How about that? Because of where this specific episode is going, I'm going to crack open a drink. I was going to say adult beverage, but it's not an adult beverage. I promise it's just ginger ale. I promise. Trust me, this episode's going to get our danders up a little bit. There's going to be a lot of reading today. And I'm going to share you with, if you're watching on video, you're going to see a lot of this reading as well. Oh, that's so good. So I'm going to share with you a couple things. Bear with me as I click through my computer here. Let's start with everybody's favorite. Let's start with this right here.
Hey everybody, so as the head of the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention, I'm very excited to tell you that as of today, we are closing the gun show loophole. Basically, we are requiring that anybody who sells guns as a dealer has to do background checks. And what we know is this is going to save lives. So it's an important step forward.
Oh, dang it, sorry.
Head of the White House Office of Gun Violence
Prevention, have to listen to
I'm
it
very
again.
excited to tell you that as of today, we are closing the gun show loophole. Basically, we are requiring that anybody who sells guns as a dealer has to do background checks. And what we know is this is going to save lives. So it's an important step forward. We got more to do. We need to pass an assault weapons ban. We need red flag laws and universal background checks. But good news to report today. Take care.
All right. Good news to report there, she says, right? Let's talk about this for a second. I know we've talked about this stuff before, and so it gets a little frustrating. I'm going to do my best to stay calm. Do my best to stay a little bit more even-keeled. I know you guys watch this are like, Steve, you really don't get upset. I do get upset, especially when things start messing with our freedoms. I shouldn't call her a thing, but it might just fit the bill in this example. So she talked about closing the gun show loophole. Can they define what the gun show loophole is? I imagine they have something, right? They talk about anybody can go to a gun show and just buy anything they want without a background check. Well, I've been to gun shows, and yeah, there's some private sellers, which it is not against the law to sell privately. But if you're acting as a dealer at the gun show, you are required by federal law, if you want to keep your FFL, your federal firearms license, you are required by federal law to fill out a background check. Okay? You cannot do a disposition on a firearm unless that background comes back in the affirmative, or the buyer is in good standing according to the government. They're not a prohibited person, let's just put it that way. So the gun show loophole in that example does not exist. Okay? It just doesn't. And so it's incredibly frustrating when we see this. Now, again, private sales, totally cool. I've seen private sales at gun shows that I've been to. But again, if you're at a booth and you're selling firearms as a dealer, I don't know, and I'm sure it's happened, but I'm not familiar with, boy, this is super anecdotal, but I'm not familiar with anybody that's a private individual that had a table at a gun show. I'm sure it's happened. None of them that I've noticed. Every time I've witnessed or experienced a firearm sale at a gun show that was a dealer, that they had to go through a background check. That's just the way it is. So So what so far is this doing? Okay, well, I'm going to jump to this video here. Let's get it set up for you. Excuse me. Let's jump over here. Ready for this? Oh, of course there's no volume. Well, what the heck? All right, hold on. Let me figure out this volume issue here. Well, it was working just a second ago. This is high quality entertainment right here, folks. High quality. Well, that doesn't, there's no volume control. Oh boy. See what I do for you guys? Do you see what I deal with you? Okay, so anyway, I guess I'll describe the video to you. So Merrick Garland is talking about that if you're in the business of doing oh brother. Okay, I'll read it to you. Under this regulation, it will not be a matter of guns that are sold on the internet, but at a gun show or at a brick and mortar store. If you sell guns predominantly to earn a profit, you must be licensed and you must conduct background check. This regulation is reading faster than the prompter, a historic step in the Department of Justice fight against gun violence. It will save lives. Okay. How is this going to save lives? That's my question. See, I can close some of these windows. So here we have Merrick Garland. We have the vice president, and obviously the ATF has extended the final rule. I'm not going to read that rule. It's like 400 pages long. I've read some of it, not very much, and you know how good of reading it must be if it comes from a department of any kind of federal agency or whatever, right? It must be riveting reading. But let's just break it down on what it says. Just the basic thing it says is if you're selling anything for any kind of profit, how minute that profit may be, you must be a dealer. So why on earth would the government want to do this? Okay. Well, their logic, as far as I understand, is they're saying that that guns are being sold to criminals that are being used in crime. And that's happening in the private market, or that's happening in backdoor sales of firearms dealers. Let's start with that last one first. I've worked for 2 federal firearms license dealers, okay? I personally do not have an FFL. I've thought about it, but I don't want to deal with the BS from the government, so I'm not going to do it. Do I sell guns for profit? No, I don't sell guns at all. I hate selling guns. Have I sold guns before? Sure. But I hate selling guns, so I usually keep them. If anything, I'll trade them off to a gun store, but that doesn't matter, okay? If you're an FFL, okay, when you bring a gun in, whether it be from a vendor or a distributor, a manufacturer in some cases, or a private person in a trade-in deal, if an FFL is acquiring any kind of firearm that has a serial number, because if now mind you, I say that because some guns are sold, they do not have serial numbers. And I have seen that. I have bought some old guns as an agent of an FFL that did not have serial numbers. Okay. That happens. It's not all the time. Okay. Side note there. But as a dealer, if you are acquiring any kind of firearm, you are required by federal law under extreme penalties to record that transaction. Okay. Now, it's called the A&D, or the Acquisition and the Disposition Book. The A&D book, bound book, it goes by a few different names. We've talked about this before, but I'm going to bring it up again because maybe some of you guys are new. So when a dealer acquires that of an FFL acquires that firearm, it gets recorded in the bound book. Now, among the things that get recorded are the make of the firearm, the manufacturer, I guess, where it was, whether it was what country or state where it was manufactured, the serial number, obviously, and sometimes some other descriptors. I think I said caliber. All that stuff has to be recorded in the bound book, and it's good to have a detailed bound book, okay? Just as by. Nowadays, the bound book, a lot of them are digital, which helps a lot. It gives you a lot more room. Back in the day, they had just what it sounds like, a book, a ledger, basically, where you'd get this information written down and recorded. Now, as you require that takes effort by the FFL, obviously. So you want to make sure, again, that information is correct on that acquisition. Now, say you have the firearm in inventory for a little while and you decide to put it back on the floor or out on the floor for sale. Somebody comes to purchase that firearm. Again, under federal law, they have to fill out the 4473 to perform a background check. That goes to the National Instant Check System. Normally pretty quick. Again, if it's done electronically, it happens really fast. If you have to do it on the phone call, which I've done, that was the way we did it in the beginning. I didn't like doing it that way, but that's neither here nor there. Normally, the NICS system works pretty quickly, normally, unless there's a big run on guns, which we've seen over the last few years. So once that background check has come back in the positive, or that person passes the background check, and now this is if you don't live in a state where some states require a state background check, which is fine. It's basically the same process. So it comes back in the affirmative. You can now dispose or do a disposition on the gun. Okay, that's where the A&D book comes in. Okay, A&D. Now we're at the D part. Well, that sounded weird, didn't it? Take it easy. Sorry, so juvenile. So now we do the disposition part of the sale. Once the money's been transferred, the background check has taken place. Now you can dispose of that gun. Now the dealer, the FFL holder, has to go into the disposition book and record the information of the sale or the transaction of that firearm, including the purchaser, whether they had a concealed weapons permit or whatever. Yes, in a way, this is a de facto gun registry. That don't be fooled. Now they say it's unsearchable. I think we've talked about this in recent shows, but I don't think that means much. Now, that being said, all that work to take place to dispose of a gun, is a criminal going to go through that much effort when they're not going to pass a background check, most likely? No, they're not. Are they going to deal with a private sale? Maybe not. In reality, I think it was less than 2% of the time these firearms are purchased for criminals, okay? Or meaning the criminal himself or herself purchased the firearm. It doesn't happen. They're either stolen, they're hot, or whatever, okay? Straw purchases, which is a real thing. That's another thing that could have happened, which they've been cracking down on straw purchases, which I'm okay with, okay? So all this work that they're going through, okay, all this endeavor to curb these loopholes that they've created themselves, in my opinion. Create a problem, create the solution. That brings us to the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, right? We all had so much fun learning about that new law that Biden said he had to do something, and so he's working so hard to do something. Well, on the 11th of April, the ATF came out with their final rule for people that are in the business of making money or whatever. I can't remember the exact definition of what they're talking. Basically, if you're selling guns to make a profit, like we just talked about with the video that we couldn't hear of Merrick Garland, if you're in the business of making money selling guns, you have to have an FFL. So what's the game? Why are they doing this? There's a lot of collectors in those out there that, yeah, they trade here and there. They trade up. Any wise collector, even in like the sports card industry, right? You move and sell cards to get better cards. The same idea was it comes with firearms, right? A lot of people, they buy a gun, they don't really like it, they'll sell it, they'll buy something else, they'll sell it to their brother or whatever. There's no laws really being broken, but they're creating this issue to create fear, to create disillusion of reality, I guess is a better way to put it. So, anyways, with this wonderful, wonderful thing, the White House put out this statement, and it's the longest statement I've seen from the White House in a very long time. I don't know if we're gonna read all of this. We might. It's kind of lengthy, but let me jump to it here. Let's see how we do here. All right. You should be able to see it. Okay. So today, the Biden-Harris administration is announcing a new rule that will save lives by reducing the number of firearms sold without background check. Okay, save lives. We got to do something. If it's not for one children, neglecting. Okay, this is in brackets here. Neglecting that firearms save more lives than they take on any given day, especially throughout a year. This final rule implements the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act's expansion of firearm background checks, the only significant expansion of the background check requirement since the Senator Biden helped shepherd the Brady bill over the finish line in 1993. Thanks for that. This action is part of the Biden-Harris administration's strategy to stem the flow of illegally required firearms into our communities and hold accountable those who supply the firearms used in crime. Okay, we just said that most of these firearms are not being sold. They are stolen. Okay? These dudes are not going in to the gun shop to buy a gun. They're stealing it. Okay? Statement from the president. I wish I could do his voice, but it would not make any sense. It would be illegible. Let's just read it. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I've spent, maybe that sounds more like Biden than I thought. I've spent hours with families who've lost loved ones to gun violence. They all have the same message. Do something. Today, my administration is taking action to make sure fewer guns are sold without background checks. This is going to keep guns out of the hands of domestic abusers and felons. They're already a prohibited person. They've already broken the law. So why not execute that law? This is going to keep guns out of the hands of... Oh, yeah, I just read that. And my administration is going to continue to do everything we possibly can to save lives. Congress needs to finish the job and pass universal background checks legislation now. Okay, no. Hell no. F you no. Okay? The only way to make a universal background check system work is to have a firearms registry. Now, I just told you the process of purchasing a firearm. A lot of this information is being recorded, but there's so many other guns out there, passed down over generations that are not in this system. Now, if we start doing universal background checks like the guy in the White House is trying to tell us to do, that means those serial numbers will be recorded. Okay, the only way a universal background check system works is as if there is a gun registry, and no, hell no. That is beyond a slippery slope. That is opening a box, a Pandora's box to straight up tyranny. Look at any country that has done a gun registry. Any country, and look what happens short thereafter. Look it up yourself. Don't believe me. Look it up. Just saying. All right. From the wonderful vice president whom we got to hear from earlier on the Twitter feed. Every year, thousands of unlicensed gun dealers? You mean private people? Sell tens of thousands of guns without background checks because it's legal to sell a gun in the United States as a private party, including to buyers who will have failed one. Okay, sure. Domestic abusers, violent felons, and even children. No common sense person would sell a gun to a child. This single gap of our federal background check system has caused unimaginable pain and suffering. Today, as the White House, the head of the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention, I am proud to say that all gun dealers must conduct background checks, no matter where or how they sell. The federal background check system is one of the biggest tools we have to keep guns out of the hands of individuals prohibited from purchasing or possessing firearms, including domestic abusers and other violent criminals. But the loopholes in America's background check laws have enabled domestic abusers, school shooters, violent criminals, and gun traffickers to illegally acquire firearms. Over the past 20 years, there have been numerous failed efforts to close these loopholes and expand background checks, including the bipartisan attempt in 1999 that followed the shooting at Columbine High, and another bipartisan attempt in 2013, which followed the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. Because it's unconstitutional. That's probably why it didn't work out so well. In 2022, President Biden accomplished what many had tried for the past 20 years. He succeeded in expanding background checks by signing into law the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. This law broadened the category of gun sellers acquired to become licensed dealers and run background checks. In 2023, President Biden signed an executive order to accelerate the implementation of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, including by directing the Attorney General to move the U.S. the Attorney General to move the U.S. as close to universal background checks as possible without additional legislation by clarifying the new act. So basically what he's saying is, Department of Justice, I don't want to have to go through Congress. Just bring us to that line and we'll go to that point. Does that sound like democracy? No. Well, maybe more the democracy in their sense of mind. It's definitely not a republic. Bless his heart. Let's see. The Department of Justice final rule clarifies a type of conduct that requires a person to get a license to sell guns and to conduct background checks. By setting clear standards for when someone is dealing firearms, the rule provides the Bureau, let's just say the ATF, with proactive tools to enforce the law and keep our communities safe. Question: when has the government been an effective business owner at any point? When have they been effective at anything? I lead you to Amtrak and the Postal Service. Neither of them are a shining pillar of a profitable business. I'm assuming that the same category or the same climax, if you will, of this rule is going to end up, which just leads them to the next best thing, right? It's just bringing us, goose stepping us, if you will, closer to a gun registry and gun confiscation. All right, background checks loopholes have deadly consequences. Since 1994, let me get a drink because this is just too much. I'm just trying not to get wound up. Since 1994, federal law has required federally licensed firearm dealers to run background checks prior to selling or transferring a weapon. I hate that term, weapon. It's a gun. Anything can be a weapon. These background checks have helped keep guns out of the hands of more than 3 million individuals who are prohibited from purchasing or possessing firearms. Oh, so it sounds like a success. Despite the law, a growing number of unlicensed sellers continue to sell firearms for profit to complete strangers that they meet at gun shows, online marketplaces, which have been a critical gap in the background check system. Okay, so we didn't really talk about online sales. Let's talk about that super quick. I find a gun on Gunbroker. Okay, that's just like the biggest one online I can think of right off the top. I find a gun on Gunbroker. I contact the seller. Said, hey, I really want to buy this gun. He says, cool beans. And I say, okay, I just send you Venmo? And he'll say, sure, you can send Venmo. That's fine. And then I say, okay, here's my address. Well, guess what? He says, no, I can't because it's a federal law, but I can ship it to an FFL from my FFL. And then you can fill out a 4473 and pick up your gun. Any online purchase of a firearm has to go through an FFL. No exceptions. That does not exist. Carry on. For the past 30 years, individuals who could not pass background checks sought out unlicensed sellers in order to evade a background check system. One investigation found 1 in 9 people who responded to online ads from unlicensed sellers would fail background check. What? Are they monitoring stuff? How did they get that information? I wonder. Tragic consequences of this unlawful conduct include, in 1999, the Columbine school shooters, both were under 18 and too young to purchase firearms legally. The shooters had their acquaintance purchase firearms for them at a gun show through an unlicensed seller to avoid a background check. Well, they didn't have to, stupid. If they didn't have a background check, I mean, they were 18, right? I don't know the whole story behind Columbine. We should probably do a show about Columbine. That might be actually kind of interesting. Nonetheless, 2012, domestic abuser was barred from possessing firearms following a restraining order taken out by his estranged wife. The day before the abuser killed his wife and 2 others, injuring 4 at the Azana Salon in Wisconsin, he purchased a gun from an unlicensed seller he met online without a background check. Private sale, not against the law. Tragic, yes. 19. A man shot and killed 7 people and wounded dozens more after multiple location shooting in Midland and Odessa, Texas. The shooter was previously tried to purchase a gun from a sporting goods store, but was stopped by a background check. Oh, wait, he did a background check and it worked. The system worked. It's not broken. And because of his mental health history, he was ultimately able to purchase an AR-15 style rifle without a background check from an unlicensed seller he met online. Private sale, not against the law. Unlicensed dealers, that doesn't mean they're a dealer, by the way. It's a private sell. Somebody just want to sell a gun. It's not against the law. Unlicensed dealers who do not conduct background checks are also the largest source of firearms that are illegally trafficked into other countries. We just did a show on this last week. That's not true. The biggest source of firearms to other countries is our own government. Spicy, right? Spicy. Let's see. In an assessment of its gun trafficking investigation from 2017 to 2021, the ATF identified sales by unlicensed dealers as the most frequently used gun trafficking channel, again, other than themselves. Moreover, unlicensed dealers were the source of more than half of the firearms identified as having been trafficked during the 5-year study period, a total of more than 68,000 illegally trafficked firearms. Project Fast and Furious. The final rule implements the new law expanding background check requirements of tens of thousands gun sales. The Department of Justice's final rule implements the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the largest expansion of background checks since the Brady Bill became law. The final rule makes it clear when a person needs to become a licensed dealer and run background checks, and gives the Department of Justice additional tools to crack down on individuals illegally selling guns without background checks. Specifically, the final rule. I had steak tonight. It was pretty good, by the way. I don't know. Sorry. Let's see. The list of types of commercial activity indicating a person must become a licensed dealer. Okay, this is important. We really need to get down to the bottom of this, folks. Thanks for hanging out, by the way. The list of types of commercial activity indicating that a person must become a licensed dealer and run background checks, absent evidence of showing that they are, in fact, not engaged in business of firearms dealing. For example, if a person is repetitively selling guns of the same or similar make and model within 1 year of their purchase, they are supposed to become a licensed dealer. If a person repeatedly sells firearms within 30 days of purchasing those firearms, or selling firearms and tells potential buyers that they can acquire additional firearms for that buyer to purchase, the seller is supposed to become a licensed dealer. Okay. Okay. States that the gun show or online sell loopholes do not exist. All of them, by the way. If you are conducting business in a brick and mortar store, would it require you to become a licensed dealer? If you have become a licensed dealer and run background checks, let's see. Let me try that again because that didn't make sense. If you are conducting business that in a brick and mortar store would require you to become a licensed dealer, you have to become a licensed dealer and run background checks. Okay, everybody that's doing that in a store is doing that. Okay, legally, they have to. It does not matter whether you are dealing firearms at a gun show, online, or in your home, in the trunk of your car, at a flea market, or anywhere else. You must obtain a license and run background checks as a background check results. Evidence that a person places ads online reserved a table at a gun show shows that a person is intending to do profit from sale. Do you know how hard it is to list a gun online, other than like Gunbroker or something like that, Guns America, which I'm pretty sure require you to put in FFL information. All right. Prevents people from evading the licensing and background check requirements by claiming that they are just selling a few guns. The final rule clarifies that even a single firearms transaction may be significant to require a license. Do we need to read that again? A single firearms transaction may be significant to require a license if there is other behavior to suggest a commercial activity. For example, a person is selling just one gun and then saying to the others they're willing to be able to purchase more firearms for resale may require to obtain a license and run a background check. Boy, that leaves a door open, doesn't it? This bill also prevents people from falsely claiming that guns are part of a personal collection in an attempt to evade the law. The statute explicitly states that making occasional sales from a firearm of a personal collection or liquidating a collection does not require a federal firearms license or background checks. However, well, I'm kind of wheezing. Weird. People have evaded the background check requirement by falsely claiming that they are selling personal collection. The final rule makes it clear that a personal collection of firearms is limited to the collections acquired for specific reasons, like study, comparison, exhibition, or a hobby, like hunting or sport shooting. A bona fide personal collection is not the same as business inventory. So you're gonna have a bunch of collectors all of a sudden, or is that the point? Maybe they're gonna start requiring FFLs. There's a collector FFL out there. That kind of is the same idea. Interesting. It closes the so-called fire sale loophole. Well, that's another loophole I haven't been introduced to. Let's find out what it is. Gun dealers who have had their license revoked have sometimes then sold their former business's inventory without running background checks. I have never heard of that happening. The final rule makes it clear that a business inventory may not be transferred to a person's personal collection after the license is revoked. Instead, a business could dispose of this inventory through other licensed seller who runs background checks. Yeah. When I was working in Boise, there was a dealer, a big gun company out of Boise that they just went out of business. Like they were closing their doors. And so they were liquidating everything. But they weren't just saying, here you go, $10, it's yours. Nope, are you a FFL? Okay, I can sell you a bunch of guns. Are you a private party? Yeah, you're still going to do a background check. I imagine that's how most FFL dealers. There's a huge weight for FFL holders out there. Like they are not going to be dicking around with breaking laws. The justice system the Justice Department makes it very clear as an FFL holder that you will be held responsible for things, and people just aren't willing to break the law like that. So stupid. There are over 80,000 licensed gun dealers in America. Not enough. We need more. The Department of Justice estimates that there are over 20,000 unlicensed sellers, how do they know this, who are selling firearms through online advertisements, which you can't do, it's impossible, gun shows, or other means. Again, private sales are not illegal in the United States. But they're trying to make them, I guess. It's pretty sweet. These unlicensed sellers should be licensed under the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Why do they have to make it such a long? Anyway, I know why, but it doesn't matter. And now the new rule. Let's see, and therefore conducting background checks. An alternative estimate based on the survey data estimates that a new rule could affect gun sales being made by over 80,000 individuals legally. but you just said it was 20. Oh, whatever. So they're thinking it's going to thwart 80,000 purchases. I think it'll scoop up some, sure, but it's not going to scoop up that many. Legal limitations on tracking firearms make such estimates difficult to quantify. Oh, you said the quiet part out loud because you want a registry so you can actually find exactly how many things are moving around. Why don't you just lead with that one? The final rule builds on the Biden-Harris administration's commitment to stopping illegal flow of guns. Again, see last week's episode. The Biden-Harris administration has deployed a historic effort to partner with state and local law enforcement and keep communities safe by addressing the illegal source of guns. The strategy is focused not just on the person who's pulling the trigger of a firearm, but also all of the links in the chain that lead to the firearm being in the wrong hands, including the gun trafficker. The source of the gun trafficker's firearms, rogue gun dealers, who are willfully, violating the law, and the ghost gun manufacturers. Again, got to bring up those ghost guns, super scary. Key administration action to stop all illegal flow of guns into our communities include, okay, let's see what they include. Join with me here. Gun trafficking. I know this is super boring, but I think we need to really understand what's in this document. Okay, just work with me here. We're almost done. Gun trafficking law enforcement. In 2021, the Justice Department launched 5 new law enforcement strike forces. Oh, no wonder why we had so much budget to the ATF. Focused on addressing the significant firearms trafficking corridors that have diverted guns to New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, the Bay Area, and Washington, D.C. The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act also enacted the first ever federal gun trafficking law and federal straw purchasing law. The new gun trafficking law has been used to charge more than 300 people and led to the seizure of over 1,500 firearms. Guess what? I know people, that is their collection, 1,500 firearms. So you have successfully taken a very minute amount of illegal guns off the street. Maybe you should prosecute those who are killing and breaking the law. But I digress. Cracking down on rogue gun dealers, the Department of Justice enacted a new policy to maximize the efficacy of the ATF's resources to crack down on rogue gun dealers violating our laws, and underscored zero tolerance for willful violations of the law by federally licensed firearm dealers that put public safety at risk. The new ATF inspection policies have led to 245 license revocations over the past 2 years. I'd be curious to see the actual details of those revocations, by the way, which is the highest in 2-year total and nearly in 20 years. Okay, so again, I want to see the details, which we never will get to see those details of why those 245 revocations happened. Stopping gun manufacturers illegally selling ghost guns. Anyway, the Justice Department issued a final rule to rein in the proliferation of ghost guns, which are unserialized, privately made firearms that are increasingly being recovered from crime scenes. Guess what? It has never been illegal in the United States history to manufacture your own gun. That has been part of the American tradition longer than the United States. But I digress. According to the ATF, the recovery of ghost guns by law enforcement increased 1,083% between 2017 and 2021. Oh, must have been during that little 5-year investigation period. The Biden-Harris administration cracked down on ghost guns by making clear that businesses manufacturing most accessible ghost guns, including buy, build, shoot kits, I've never seen that numbered before, I'm sure it exists, and certain polymer handgun frames, including certain polymer 80 handgun frames. Shout out to the company, straight up. Must comply with federal firearms laws requiring background checks and a federal firearms and a federal license. Oh, let's try that again. Requiring background checks, a federal license, and markings such as serial numbers. There we go. Made it through. The Senate confirmed ATF director. Oh, yes, this is a good one. President Biden secured the confirmation of the ATF director, Stephen Dettelbach, the first permanent ATF director in over 7 years to lead the agency tasked with enforcing our nation's laws. Yeah, okay, it would have been nice if Donald Trump actually put somebody good in there, by the way. He's not a big fan of the Second Amendment. I don't care what you say. Crime Gun Intelligence Centers. The ATF works with state and local law enforcement to establish crime gun intelligence centers, which uses the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network and crime gun tracing to provide investigative leads to solve shootings and identify gun trafficking channels. I'm not against that per se. Okay, I'm okay with like them actually doing something to stop crime. I'm totally cool with that. But who knows what avenue that leads down, by the way. New analysis on gun trafficking. In 2021, President Biden announced that the ATF would publish the first gun trafficking analysis in 20 years. ATF has published 3 volumes, with the most recent volume showing that most frequent type of trafficking channels identified in the ATF gun trafficking investigation was unlicensed firearm dealing by private persons at 40.7%. These investigations accounted for over half of the firearms identified as trafficked in the ATF investigations. The second most frequent trafficking channel was straw purchases. Again, see last week's show. Today, Biden-Harris administration is moving as close as possible to universal background checks. Again, no. Oh, I should say, as President Biden said to Iran, don't. Pretty stern words from an amazing president. The Biden-Harris administration is moving as close as possible to universal background checks without additional legislation. President Biden and Vice President Harris continue to call on Congress to enact universal background checks and finish the job. No, don't. President and Vice President also continue to call the Congress to increase funding for ATF. No, don't. So the agency can continue its life-saving work to stop the flow of illegal firearms and other into our communities. The president requests $2 billion for the ATF as part of his fiscal year 25 budget. Again, in the words of our great president, don't. All right, we made it through the dock. See? Not too shabby. Seriously, though, what do you guys think of this doc? What do you guys think of this new final rule on doing business? Now, if it's any kind of profit, the ATF could say, yeah, you should have been an FFL. What is the recourse of not having an FFL? Well, obviously, jail time. Any kind of gun crime on a federal level could be up to 10 years and $250,000 fine. Are you going to do 10 years just because you sold your brother-in-law the Taurus that you hated? No offense to your brother-in-law. But for reals, what is the end game, right? This is what we got to understand. They said the quiet part out loud in that press release. They want universal background checks as I slap my mic. They want a registry. Why would the government need a registry? Why would the government need to know where every firearm is at any given moment? Why? I know why. Because they need to know where to go get them. Now, I know you can say, Steve, you're way out of left field. And I hope I am. I lived in Australia not long after the Port Arthur shooting. Not after all the guns were bought back. The government cannot buy something they've never owned. Like, they can't buy back. They never owned the gun. First, it was voluntary. Yeah, we'll pay you this much. I know it's not worth as much as what you paid for it, but this is what it is. You'll be in violation of the law. So you either take this money or you go to jail, and we take the gun too, and you get nothing but 3 hots and a cot. And something on your record. Once people passed the voluntary stage, it was, we're taking them. If you skipped through that somehow, which some people did in Australia, then it got serious. Now you can't tell me they're not coming after your guns. Like I said, we had this great little meeting on Spaces on Friday. Again, you can go look it up on Twitter. Look up Joe Lanou in his Spaces. It's called Night Court. They want to take your guns. Did you guys listen to the David Hogg and Spike Cohen's debate? They want your guns. Make no mistake. It is all about demolishing the Second Amendment. In my opinion, okay, I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I have been a lifelong resident of the United States. I consider myself a free person, even though it seems like there's more restrictions than ever in my lifetime. What's the game? The Second Amendment is there not for hunting. And yeah, it might make you uncomfortable when I say this. It is to fight against tyranny. Now you might say, well, like that guy in the White House says all the time, you're seriously going to use an AR-15 and AKs to fight against nuclear bombs and F-15s? First of all, are you planning on using nuclear bombs on your own citizens? That says tyranny right there. Second, I point you to Afghanistan. A bunch of cave-dwelling backwoods people, right? That's what we were told they were. 17 years. How did that end up? The guy in the White House leaves billions of dollars of equipment, firearms, latest tech, personnel, leaves it behind. That wasn't a win. So I'll put it this way. Yep. Here's the other thing that they do not count. There's no loyalty to the presidency anymore. I've talked to a lot of veterans lately. I've off the record, very few, if any, would stand up in support of that man. I imagine there'd be a huge amount of defectors from the military who know how to fly those planes, who know how to do those tactics. It's not going to work out the way it's painted. Am I calling for an insurrection? Absolutely not. Understand that. I don't want violence. I just want my freedom. I want the America I had growing up for my children and my grandchildren. That's all I want. Every time they introduce these bills, these gun control bills, every time, does violent crime decrease? Do murders used by firearms with firearms, does that go down? What about gang violence? Has that gone down after every law that's passed? No, it doesn't. Almost like the desire to commit evil acts exists no matter what. So why are you neutering the public from defending themselves to people that don't obey the laws? To people that'll commit violence no matter what, especially if they know the victim cannot fight back. I don't understand the logic. Maybe there's a deeper meaning there. Maybe there's more to the story that's not being shared. Don't believe the numbers that they're giving you nonstop. We've talked about the firearms death numbers, the more mass shootings than days of the year numbers. Don't just, on either side, left side, right side, Republican, Democrat, don't listen to those numbers. Don't listen to the stuff I give to you. Don't. Look at the numbers yourself. Develop an opinion of your own. Learn how to research those things. Learn where to find the actual numbers. Go to the FBI statistics. Okay? That's fine. Go to Mother Jones. Go to the Gun Violence Archive. But don't forget, you go to the Crime Prevention Research Center. Gather all the information you can to make an educated understanding of the situation at hand. I have a feeling you're going to come to a very similar conclusion that I have, because I have done that. I want to hear the anti-gun debate. I want to understand their logic, because it helps me understand why I stand firm where I am right now. I will not comply. I won't. It is none of the government's effing business what I do with my guns, as long as I'm not deliberately, knowingly selling them to a felon that's going to do something wrong. I get that. But if I want to sell a gun to my neighbor who I know has a concealed weapons permit, who passed a background check already, that's none of your damn business. I get pissed, so pissed at the ignorance on both sides of the aisle when it comes to gun policy. Nobody gives a shit about your rights. Pardon my French. Those people who we've hired to stand as as we would be there, to be our voice, they don't represent you anymore. They represent themselves and their pocketbook and the special interests who pull the strings. I'm convinced of that. Sure, there might be a few, but it's only a matter of time before they get their boots covered in the septic tank. Well, what's in the septic tank, I suppose, is a better way to put it. Don't get me wrong. I do not think all is lost. I don't like the doom and gloom thing. I have so much faith in the future generations. There's so many kids that are their eyes are being opened nowadays. One of the fastest growing groups of firearms purchasers are 20-somethings. They're not even millennials. I don't know what you call them anymore. Young people that understand freedom, that are living with mounds of repression. They don't like the economy. They don't like the direction of the country. They don't see any kind of freedom that their parents and grandparents talked about. I have faith in the future. So don't get me wrong. Again, I do not want violence. I hate the idea of this whole January 6th thing is just stupid. It's a stupid argument. Do we have the right to protest? Sure, absolutely. March on your capital, okay? Make your voices heard. That's totally cool. Don't turn to violence. Don't break laws. That doesn't do any good. Well, that makes me think of Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. Maybe there's a time and a place to break a law, but not violence. There's so much hope for this country. The future is not lost. The light's not out. It's not a dark future for us yet. But when we start to give up flakes of our freedom here and there, just little chips, it doesn't take long for those little chips to add up to a lot. You need to stand up for your rights. You need to stand up for your freedoms, or they will be lost. Ronald Reagan said we are one vote away from losing freedom, right? Or was it Republic? I know I screwed up that quote. But you get what I'm saying. One vote away. I'm not telling you to vote for Donald Trump. I'm not telling you to vote for Joe Biden, I don't care who you vote for as long as you get out and vote and make your voice heard. Now, I would say voting for the left would be a drastic mistake, but you have to vote your conscience. But understand what our founding fathers created. That is not being taught anymore. That is not being shared to your children. And it's harder to find online than it used to be. Luckily, behind me, you can't see behind my sticker walls here and my patch wall, I have bookshelves full of books, encyclopedias, history books. Stuff that's, I don't even know if it's in print anymore. I got some good stuff back there. Preserve what we have. Understand where they want to take us. Understand the possibilities of these presumed and projected laws. And understand how dangerous they can be. Once we understand history, we have a clarity for the future. Because this stuff has all been done before. The same kind of lies, the same kind of rhetoric, the same kind of, honestly, dog and pony show. I was going to say, what are they? Never mind. It doesn't matter. This has all been done before. But you wouldn't understand it if you don't understand history. Don't give up. Don't get frustrated. Stand as a voice. Be a beacon. Starts in your home. Starts with you, then in your home, then your neighborhood, and then your community. That is the key to the future. It starts with you. Understand what it's written in the preamble, we the people. Once you get your house in order, and you help your neighbor get their house in order, and all your neighbors get your community in order, that's where we the people come in. Because then it's your neighborhood, and another neighborhood, and then a state, and then a few states. We the people are the power, and that's how it is meant to be. And that's how it should be. Anyway, I know this show is probably kind of boring. I appreciate you guys if you guys have hung through this entire time. I know an hour of the new rule, the new ATF rule, is pretty boring and dry. It just is what it is, folks. Do I want to do fun, happy shows? Yeah, absolutely. I do. I just can't turn a blind eye to what the reality is. I can't. There's just so much going on in the world right now, in our country. I was going to say some more stuff. I'm done monologuing. I'm done. We'll be done with this show. You guys are probably, yeah. It's like your dad just never shutting up, right? I remember. Here we go again. I remember when my son came back home. He came home late, right? We have curfews. I expect my kids to be home at a certain time when I tell them to be home. So I have a curfew set. My son, who's the oldest, challenged that curfew often. And because I'm an ass and he was tired, I kept him up later because I'm an ass. And I did that by lecturing him, which I know he absolutely hated. And I can't help it. I'm a natural lecturer. So you just got kept up past your curfew, folks. I guess that's what it boils down to. I appreciate you guys a lot. I do this for fun. I do this because I love you guys. I do this because I love the Constitution. I love freedom. I love the Second Amendment. All those are the same in reality. I love being a free American. And I want to share that love with others. I appreciate you guys. If you hung out this whole time, thank you. If you want to reach out, you can jump on the website, rangemindedpodcast.com. There's a way to send notes there. I have not all of them, but a lot of the social links there. You can reach out on Twitter, which I don't think is on the website. Twitter, I just started a True Social page, which honestly, I don't do anything on True Social. Honestly, I've been hitting Twitter extremely hard. Or X, whatever you want to call it. I shouldn't say, but I've been hitting my X really hard. That sounds really demeaning. But I've been spending a lot of time on Twitter. formerly Twitter, now X, whatever. You get what I'm trying to say. Good grief. I'm just trying to close the show out and I can't shut up. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for all that you do. More good stuff to come. Again, hang out on Twitter Spaces with me. It's a ton of fun. I'm thinking about doing like a weekly show on Twitter. We'll see what happens. It probably will happen. Just a weekly Spaces there. Just to hang out and BS. Don't forget, GunCon is coming up. GunCon 2024. That's at Brownells. I am planning on being there. We should be there. It should be a good time. That is June 28th, 29th. June 29th in Grinnell, Iowa at Brownells headquarters. Should be a good time. It should be awesome. Again, you can find us on all our social links. You can go to Instagram. There's my link tree on Instagram. I think it's on Twitter as well. Either way, you'll find us. Anywhere, just look for Range Minded Podcast. You'll find us, okay? Relax. All right, guys, I love you. Be safe. And don't forget, you got to take somebody shooting.